Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I have the honor and the pleasure to welcome one of the most amazing women I've ever seen ever, with, I think, one of the best ads I have ever seen ever, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Tega. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
I am too. I think a lot of people know who you are and we know what you're doing. And we hope to send you to, the Capitol. Just saying. But with that being said, I want to start off with the first question. What made you decide this was the right time to run for US Senate? Because I've been asking that. I was like, people just wake up and be like, I'm gonna run. And I'm like, okay. So why did you feel like this was the best decision right now to do this?
Well, first of all, let me just say it wasn't something that I have just throughout my life thought one day I'm going to run for the United States Senate. But I guess I should share the story of how I started running for office in the first place, and certainly at the state level here in Illinois. I'm proud to currently serve as Illinois' lieutenant governor alongside Governor J.B. Pritzker. But 10 years ago in 2016, and in the years before that, a few years before that, I was caring for my mother. So my mother, Velma, had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I was her primary caregiver. She lived in my home for a number of years, but the final 3 years of her life, as she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, she lived with me and my family. I was part of what so many call the sandwich generation,
Yeah.
where I was working full time. I was a career woman. I'm a mom, and I was caring for my mother. And I always say it was the hardest thing that I've ever done and the greatest honor of my life. But at that time, in 2015, while I was caring for her, I saw a news story that said that our previous governor and my state representative were working to strip away health care from seniors like my mother.
Wow.
And I got so mad because I knew how hard it was. And I just couldn't imagine people that were even more vulnerable not having access to the care they needed. So I yelled at the television, somebody should run against him, talking about my state rep. And I did not know it was going to be me, but it was me because I saw a need and I stepped up to meet that need. And, uh, and I ran against a 13-year incumbent because I
Hmm.
knew it was important to fight for people to have access to health care. And I lost my mom in 2016, the day before I launched that campaign. But there's always a sort of a reminder, or in many ways, feel that she's just with me, reminding me why I do what I do, which is to make sure that government can be a force for good and not a roadblock for people. It should be a partner, not a roadblock. And
Yeah.
here we are 10 years later, and look what's happening in Washington. And there's just such a need when we see attacks on the rule of law, attacks on our Constitution, attacks on our rights and our democracy. I see a real need for leadership. And once again, I'm stepping up to meet that need. So that's how I got started. And that's what I want to do when I get to DC.
I love that. I think your passion just really speaks through because you're not doing it for the money or the fame. You're doing it because you want to help the people in your state. You want to help the people that are close to you, your neighbor, your family, your friends, and your future generations. With that being said, like, how has your journey from state representative to lieutenant governor prepared you for this moment? Like, I know there's been trials and tribulations, but
Trials and tribulations. It's not easy. I mean, and in the environment in which we're trying to do what we have set out to do, it is not easy. And certainly with this, the Trump 2.0, and we were also in office during the first Trump administration. We inherited the state of Illinois from a governor that had created, we went almost 2 years without a budget in Illinois under our previous governor. I mean, this was not somebody who was trying to do what was in the best interest of the people of Illinois. And so when we took over, there were a lot of things that were just a
mm,
mess. We had colleges and universities that were going to close their doors. Our social service safety net had just been shred to pieces. Our safety net hospitals were going to close their, it was a mess, and people were not getting paid. Our
mhm.
organizations that are doing good work in the community that had state grants just weren't getting paid. And so many people were struggling. So when we look at the chaos in Washington, I always say, although this president takes it to a different level, but it's not unfamiliar. And
Mhm.
what we knew is that we kept saying back when we were running, we would always say we want to do big things. We want to think big for the people of Illinois. And so I think what really has helped prepare me for this moment is I
Mhm.
know what it's like when we are seeing chaos. We know what can happen when you have good, strong, steady, courageous leadership that is
Mhm.
really focused on the people that you represent. I mean, we got into office, we've created thousands of good paying jobs, we've passed an assault weapons ban, we have made Illinois a real island for reproductive freedom in the Midwest, we've put Illinois on a path to a clean energy future. We did all of that despite some of the trials and tribulations. We have stayed focused on what is possible. And that's why I always say now I want to bring that same blueprint to Washington, D.C.
Awesome. So, with that being said, what does a success look like for you in the Senate, right? I think some people go in and they're like, success is I answered an email and got a constituent's passport when they needed it, or I was able to pass this legislation. So, what does success look like for you in the Senate?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I always say, Tega, that I, of course, want to pass good legislation. Of course, I want to have strong, responsive constituent affairs. Of course, I want to use my bully pulpit to speak with a clear and loud voice about what is happening in our country right now and to hold this president accountable and what I plan to do and to call him out on his nonsense. But I also see this as an opportunity to really push us and push our party. I'm a Democrat, push our party to be courageous in this moment. You know, my campaign is focused on giving the people what they want. That is kind of the overall theme of my campaign. Give the people what they want. Because too many people are fed up with feeling like no matter who's in Washington, their lives aren't getting any better. So I'm
Mhm.
going to do just that. I'm going to fight for Medicare for all because I believe that too many people are choosing between paying their rent and
Mhm.
going to the doctor, and that is a false choice. I believe that everyone deserves access to quality affordable health care. Everyone should be able to see a doctor when they need one. I want to raise the federal minimum wage to $25 an hour. Everybody can say, I can say, anybody listening today being honest can say that everything is just too expensive right now.
Yep.
And when I go around the state talking to voters, you know, the federal minimum wage right now is $7.25. We raised it to $15 an hour here in Illinois. That's $31,000, $31,200 a year. So
Mhm.
we ask ourselves, as things are getting more expensive, why are wages still the same as they were at the federal level as 2009? While everything else is just getting more gas and utilities and, you know, health care and housing, groceries, everything is more expensive. So $25 is about a livable wage, not just trying to give people enough to just barely scrape by. Let's help people thrive. And then I want to get corporate PAC money out of politics. You know, I'm
Yeah.
running for the US Senate because I want to serve you, the people, not corporate special interests. And I'm the only candidate that has pledged not to take one single dime of corporate PAC money in this race. And that's how I'm going to continue to move forward and to make sure that I'm centering the needs and interests of the people of Illinois and not corporate special interest.
Yes, I love that. And with that being said, I think there's a bit of social media question I have in here. How do you deal with the negative backlash? And I think sometimes bad faith actors who see what you're doing as different than a standard politician. How do you respond to that, right? Because I feel like you're being authentically you. I don't know what they're thinking about, but how do you deal with that, right? Social media is a big part of campaigning now. I remember when people were like, knocking doors will win elections. True, but your social media presence now also helps you win elections. And it
Mhm.
matters more than anything. So how do you deal with that?
I mean, you know, people are going to have different opinions. What I have always tried to do, especially I remember running for state representative, people had all these, this, you know, these kind of like, here's what you need to do. Here's what you can wear this, you can't wear that. Here's how you
Yeah.
need to style your hair. You can't dance, you can't do this. There's always going to be people who try to tell you this is the only way to do it. And I've always learned very early on, especially in public service, to bring my full and authentic self into these spaces. That you are going to get Juliana Stratton and the lived experiences that I have as a caregiver, as a mom of four daughters, as a wife, as a restorative justice practitioner, as somebody who really tries to prioritize health and wellness, all of those things that are me as a justice advocate, like that's who I am, and I cannot be anything different than that. And so when I come with what I'm talking about, this isn't because I had a consultant tell me what I should talk
Mm.
about, or it was just because that's the language that this is the language you must use. I talk to the people. Everything that this is what I've heard from real people every single day. And I think it's important that when we talk about what we can do for the people that we represent, that we don't do it by thinking what's the bare minimum. And that's what people are fed up with in Washington
Hmm.
right now. It seems like everybody, and I heard it a lot during my primary campaign, well, that's too hard. We're not going to have the votes. We're not going to be able to do that. Or I'm not sure if there's the political will. Then let's bring the political will.
Yeah.
Let's do what we need to do, at least to fight for people, because I can tell you more than anything else, what people are saying to me is I want someone who's going to go to the mat fighting for me. So why do
Mm.
we lower our expectations and think it's okay, especially dealing with the president who is neither a normal president or a normal person? Why are we still trying to use the same tactics against a president that doesn't negotiate in good faith, doesn't care about doing what's best for the American people? So I'm going
Mhm.
to bring the energy that I believe we need to bring to meet this moment. I'm going to bring new, bold ideas. And yes, I have a big vision for the people that I represent, because it's not just about giving the people what they want. It's about giving the people what they deserve. And people deserve livable wages. They deserve access to health care. And they deserve a government that is focused on them, not corporate special interest.
Yeah, I love that. I think you started touching on this point where people don't feel that the system is working, right? I think there's been conversations of my vote doesn't matter, my opinion doesn't matter, I'm electing people who are still going to office. So, how do you respond to voters who feel like the system isn't working for them? Because I feel like a lot of times, even as a black, I'm like, the system really does not like us. Like, I gotta say this, but it seems like anytime it seems like black women are voting for what we believe is actually right for America, everyone's like, I'm going to go the opposite direction and then come back and go, well, they were kind of right. So, my question to you is like, how do you respond to voters who feel like the system isn't working for them?
I mean, I say I hear you. What I say to voters who feel like the system isn't working for them is that I hear you. And, as I've said before, people are fed up with representatives who, really spend all their time really working for corporations and CEOs rather than the people that they were elected to serve, or people who get to Washington and then all of a sudden seem to forget, oh, who got me here? Who are the ones that actually got me here? People are done with the status quo. They are done with business as usual. And so, I also say that it doesn't have to be this way. That's the
Yeah.
other message. It doesn't have to be this way. We can build a government that is a true partner to the people, not a roadblock. And that's exactly, what I'm working towards in my campaign. And it's why I've pledged to take no corporate PAC money. It's why I've pledged to fight to end Citizens United. It's why I'm going to work to ban congressional stock trading. I'm going to do those things, but I'm also going to make sure that I am staying connected to the people that I represent. I always say it's a two-way communication. An election is just one part of it. But when you get elected, you then get into that seat, and then the communication, it's not just about reaching voters while you are campaigning. How are we connecting with the people once you're in office,
Yeah.
and keeping a dialogue, not a monologue where you just come to say, well, here's what I did, here's what I'm going to do this next, and here's what I thought. Yes, it's important to communicate what you've done, but it's also important to listen to the people who are holding you accountable. And that is the
Yeah.
role that everyone, if we're going to have a democracy that is sustained, it requires two-way communication. And I think that's going to be important as well.
See, if I lived in Illinois, I would vote for you. And I know it's kind of illegal to vote from a
Thank you,
different
Tega.
place.
That's right. You can't do it.
Because I'm sitting here like, you saw me, girl. I'm on. Can I hop on the train and volunteer? But I want to say this running for Senate is a major step. And what has been the most challenging part of the campaign, right? I think there are trials and tribulations, but like, what has been some of the, challenging parts of this campaign?
Well, Illinois, we experienced several months very up in an up close and personal way of Operation Midway Blitz.
Hmm.
And not just that, but we're just in general living through some really scary times right now. I mean, we have a president who every single day you wake up and I don't know about you, but you're like, okay, before I pick up my phone, what am I about to see? If I open my newspaper, what are we going to see now? And every single day there is something else that, it just invokes anger at times, fear at times. It's hard to keep up. And I always say to people, sometimes you just want a sense of normalcy. And sometimes I think people think that elected leaders don't feel personally what's happening or are not affected because we have to be sort of in a position of, demonstrating strength and we are leaders, and so we do, but it doesn't mean that we're not impacted by what we are seeing. I've been out in the streets protesting, I've been out on rapid response, I've been at schools helping students with safe passage as ICE has been terrorizing our communities in Illinois.
Yeah.
But I think that even though it is frightening to see what has happened and so much harm done to our communities, I can also say it's also been inspiring. It's also been inspiring because I've seen so many people throughout the entire state of Illinois stepping up and coming together and looking out for one another and fighting back in any way they can. And I think, that's what we have to do. We all have to find our way that we are going to fight back, not sit on the sidelines, not get complacent, but and not lose hope that we cannot make it better. And so that's what I've been doing. So, yeah, it's not always easy, but I can tell you that even when it's difficult, there are so many rays of light that continue to shine through. And I'm just honored that I can be a part of this.
That was that was great. I don't know really what more to say, but like what hearing all of this, I think you have set yourself apart as an incredible candidate. But from your viewpoint, what sets you apart from the others in this race? What is the Stratton effect? Insert graphic image here, but like what sets you apart more than anything?
Yeah, well, now we have, of course, are in the general election.
Yeah.
I was so proud to, of course, win the primary election, the Democratic primary, and now we're in the general election, and I'm facing a Republican opponent who, in so many ways, will be a rubber stamp to Donald Trump's agenda. I talk a lot about how I'm going to stand up and be a check on this president, but I have an opponent that is actually going to help this president continue his agenda and move it forward.
Mhm.
And think about it. Like Donald Trump promised to lower cost on day one. Day
Did
one.
not.
You
Did
know,
not do that.
he said he would be the president of peace and not, drag us into the middle of an unnecessary war. But look where we are. He's done neither of those things. And I don't think anyone is happy with how he's used ICE to really as a private police force in our
Yeah.
communities. I mean, we saw that again up close and personal here in Illinois. So I always say if you're looking for more of the same of what Donald Trump and his administration has to offer, then that's fine. But if you are looking for somebody who's going to be a real fighter, who's going to go to Washington, who's going to stand up to Donald Trump, stand up to his administration, then I always say that I'm the one that you're looking for.
I believe that. Again, still can't illegally vote in Illinois, but people who
No, you
do
cannot.
should. I want to ask the final two questions for you. It's
Mhm.
what excites you the most about this next chapter, and what do you say to voters who are still deciding?
Yeah. Well, I think there's so much that excites me about this next chapter. And in fact, it's still walking on cloud nine a little bit
Mm.
after the primary because it was just, I was just so proud of our team and proud of how our message broke through, proud of the response that we got all over the state of Illinois. Just very grateful that Democratic voters put their trust in me. And I'm excited to keep working every single day to get all around the state as we head towards the November general election. But I'm also excited to work with other Democrats around the state. We have a real wonderful opportunity, and not just in the state, but all across the country, to really make sure that we, win back the House, take back the Senate this November, and really do what we need to do to start turning things around and put a stop to Donald Trump and his administration, including holding him accountable and making sure that all of the gains that we have made for working families across this country are protected and that we continue making those gains because this is a president who has been turning us backward. So I'm just excited about the opportunity, but certainly excited about continuing to meet voters. And for those who didn't meet me, or for those who weren't a part of the Democratic primary, or maybe didn't even support me in the primary, I want to be a senator for all of Illinois, and I'm going to work hard to earn their support as well.
Love that. So, Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to give you the floor. Whatever you'd like to say to my audience, what they should know, any final words you would like to say here would be greatly appreciated. So I give you the floor in this moment.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity, and I've loved our conversation. What I would just say is that I certainly hope to earn your support, and I'll be working hard every single day to earn the support of every voter across the great state of Illinois as we head to the November 3rd election. You can learn more about me and my campaign at julianastratton.com. That's JulianaStratton.com. And then certainly make sure that you're following along on social media on all the different platforms so that you can see what we're doing, when we're going to have events. And I'd love to meet you in person. And I can tell you that I am just so honored to be on this path. And I certainly look forward to representing you and taking your voices with me to Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. It's an honor to meet you. I am rooting for you. If I ever wander into Illinois soon, relatively soon, I'll make sure to stop by your office and see if there's any way I can pass out some literature, tell people more about you and support in that way. So thank you again so much for being on the podcast. We appreciate you. And I'm really excited to see what happens in November.
Thank you, Tega. Have a great day.
You too.